All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of That's So Random with your host, Doc Anthony Bravo. That's right, Doc One. Today, we're going to cover ambition. There's a lot of pros and cons around ambition. I'm a person that's very ambitious. I sometimes overreach my ambition, but I can honestly say that there are some pros and cons about being ambitious. Now, let's talk about it. We hear all the time, stay hungry, never settle. Grind until you die. But let me ask you something. At what point does ambition stop pushing us forward and start pulling us under? Now, there's a lot that I've learned in the last week about pushing yourself way too far and spreading yourself thin. One thing that I've learned is that you definitely need time for yourself. You definitely need time to recharge. On the grind all the time is awesome, but there's two stories in the last week that I've heard of people going too far for their job. And don't get me wrong, I'm one that I am 100% all the time, but I also know that sometimes I should understand my limits. I don't know my limits, but I should understand my limits because I sometimes push myself too far. And I have very little sleep, and I try to put in the most work with the amount of time that we have in a day. Now, there was a story circulating on social media about this entrepreneur, owner, I believe her name was like Keita Cole, and then she tweeted, Keita needs a nap, and then apparently she passed away. I take a lot of things that I read online with a grain of salt, but if that is the case, my condolences to her and her family. But that's just one of the examples of you're pushing yourself too far. You want to work hard enough where your work is recognized, but you don't want to push yourself too hard where that's the last thing you do. Now, with the pros of being ambitious, the drive that you have when you're ambitious is to level up. It gives you a direction of where you want to go with your goals and your aspirations, and it helps you stay focused and resilient. Something about the cons that I know for sure I've experienced is that it can make you feel like you're never enough and anything you do is not good enough. It can lead to burnout, especially if you don't pace yourself. It makes you compare yourself to everyone else on your highlight reel. Don't compete with anyone else. That's my advice to you. Don't compete, okay? Just do your job, do it to the best of your ability, and just keep working hard. One thing you learn if you've ever done competitive racing, you don't look at those on the side of you, you look at the goal and you keep running towards it. If you keep looking at those that you're competing with, that's going to slow you down. And trust me, you're going to miss a step because you're too focused on everybody else to get to the ultimate goal. Now, it's like a fire. It'll cook your meal or it'll burn your house down, depending on how you see it. So I'm learning to honor my ambition by also checking my ego. You don't need to prove to anyone anything. You just got to be consistent and stay on course to move to the next level. On the topic of burning out, I'm always working. In the last episode, I spoke about I'm always writing. If I'm not writing, I'm editing. And you gotta pace yourself. And again, I tend not to listen to my own advice sometimes, but sometimes I really have to make a note to myself bro, take a break, cool off, okay? Lately, I've had a pilot sci-fi series that I was working on. Every day I was editing, and I had to take a break because I felt like I was too focused on it. Then I started writing for other people. I started writing for myself. Then I had this OYF film challenge come up, so I'm trying to prepare that. Not only am I preparing for my own film, but I'm also in other people's films. And I feel terrible because I've gotten so many emails about the scheduling, the rehearsal days, and I sometimes don't know how to mentally deal with that. So I'll look at it, I'll read it, and I'll make a mental note. And I'll jot it down somewhere like, okay, boom. And that's because I've overreached my ambitions. I slightly burned myself out. Then, preparing for the upcoming films, my youngest daughter's birthday, I've been working overtime. And I usually just work my minimum amount of hours to stay full-time, or my 40. I never overdo it because I try to balance work and the career. But lately, I've been having to work overtime to make sure I'm prepared for my child's birthday, my family coming in from out of town, and the films that I'm preparing. As a filmmaker, you definitely want to at least feed your actors. A lot of times in these challenges, it's a lot of up-and-coming filmmakers, actors, and a lot of people don't have a budget. So the bare minimum that you can do is at least feed them. And if you have some to spare, and you got some coming from ways out, throw a little bit of gas money. I try to do all of the above. Obviously, don't want to stretch myself thin when I got, projects. Obviously, my children, my house, and I try to balance. And obviously, working some overtime definitely helps contribute to everything that I got going on right now. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Need a commercial that's out of this world? Look no further than Pharaohs. We create stunning videos that captivate audiences and drive results. From concept to completion, our team of experts will bring your vision to life. We're not just a production company, we're storytellers. Ready to launch your brand into the future? Contact Pharaohs today and let us create something extraordinary.
Our next topic, we're going to move on to the wrestling recap. This past weekend, we had the King and Queen of the Ring out of Saudi Arabia, Monday Night Raw, and just going to go over the recap really quick. All right, so for those of you who missed King and Queen of the Ring this past weekend, the Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa match was one of my favorite standout match of the night. You had Hikuleo debuting, you had Tongaloa coming back from his injury. Where's Tamatanga? Not too sure, but obviously Solo's bloodline is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm just really curious of where this storyline is going to go. The women's division has been killing it. Every time there's a women's match, they go out, they give it 110%. So I can't even debate on which match I felt was my favorite. I really liked that Jade and Asuka match. There were a few botches, but overall I felt the match was good, especially with Jade coming out in her Storm costume. That was really amazing because obviously Jade loves Storm, so that was pretty dope. I like the fact that the Judgment Day now officially all have titles. Roxanne and Raquel Rodriguez have the women's tag team belts. Obviously, if you watch Monday Night Raw, both GMs from SmackDown and Raw gave the green light for Roxanne to take over as Liv's replacement, since they're technically all in the same stable. JD McDonough and Finn Balor won the tag team titles over the New Day, which is weird to me because the New Day had it, I think defended it like twice and then dropped it. The Judgment Day, which is dope. Dom is still quote unquote injured, but he still got his IC title. And I'm just wondering what they're going to do with him. Talking about the Judgment Day, update on Liv Morgan's injury. Liv Morgan is still sidelined. While the exact details haven't been made public, reports say that she's rehabbing and hopes to be cleared soon. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Original comedy, plus bits and pieces lost in time and space. Canned meat theater. You never know what's inside.
All right. Now, since last week's episode was broken up in 3 episodes, we're going to make this episode a little shorter. We're going to be a little bit more putting it all together, summarizing this week in wrestling, in baseball, and the topic at hand. Now, this week, the All-Star selections were announced. The Yankees, my team, even though they're really slumping right now, they're technically or currently losing to the Toronto Blue Jays. I have no idea what's going on with that team. Besides Max Fried, their pitching is trash. Approaching the trade deadline, I feel like they need to definitely invest in some arms. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Will Warren, trash. Clark Schmidt, trash. Get rid of those two or throw them in the bullpen. Marcus Stroman, he just came back from an injury, but he won his last outing, so that was dope. Stop sleeping on Marcus Stroman. Let that man pitch. Let him be the savage that he can be. Stop holding him back, okay? This man is passionate about baseball, and he shows it every time he takes that mound. Now, Aaron Judge, he had about 1 million votes. Obviously, he was a shoo-in. Shohei Ohtani, shoo-in. The starters have been announced for the All-Star game. And key players like Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, earned automatic starting spots. I mean, those two are beasts. They're savages. Who wouldn't want them on the team? I mean, come on. Aaron Judge, his batting average is .358, number 1 in the MLB, 30 home runs, tied for second in the MLB, 67 RBIs, 4th in the MLB, and on-base percentage 1.188, first in MLB. Shohei Ohtani, he's batting .287, not the best, but he's at 30 home runs. Same with Aaron Judge. He got 55 RBIs, and his on-base percentage is 1.024, second in the NL. Now, we'll end today's show with questions from our listeners. One of the first questions I've gotten was, how was your time on Cobra Kai? Now, for those of you who don't know, I was an extra in the last season of Cobra Kai. I was a camera guy. Unfortunately for me, being a camera guy on a show, I'm wearing all black and there was a light behind me, so you barely saw me. There's a fan page on Instagram that tags people who he finds on the Sekai Taikai tournament scene. And I've been tagged a few times where you can see partial parts of me, or like, the bald head, you can see me in one shot there. And it's cool. Obviously I didn't get a lot of camera time, but the experience was one that I wouldn't trade for the world. I grew up on the Karate Kid movies, so being on set and seeing Daniel, seeing Johnny, seeing John Kreese, I'm calling them by their characters, just seeing all the major characters from the Karate Kid franchise, it was great. It was an amazing experience. The cast, the younger ones, like Miguel, Samantha, Tori, they were amazing. Nobody really had an ego. There was one main character, I'm not going to mention his name, but there was one main character there that my friend Dylan actually said hi to him, and he kind of like brushed us off, and I'm like, this is why I don't sweat celebrities, because we just said hi. We didn't ask for an autograph. We didn't ask for a picture. We just said hi, and they were like, whatever. And it's like, bro, come on. Why are you being a dick? It is what it is. But like I said, everybody was amazing. I had a lot of fun talking to all these actors that I grew up watching and picking their brain about the industry. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't like starstruck. It was dope. It was nostalgic. I worked for record labels. I did internships, recording studio called The Hit Factory. So I've seen celebrities since I was a child. In the Bronx, I've met a lot of celebrities who weren't celebrities back then. One of the ones that I was really good friends with, I was really good friends with his brother, and him and I became good friends, and then he blew up and became famous, is one Prince Roy. I grew up in the same neighborhood as Big Pun. Terror Squad members I was friends with. I've met Nori before. I met KRS-One before. I met a lot of legends in the hip-hop game. So I wasn't fully starstruck, but that was a dope experience. Now, in regards to today's episode, I had some questions sent to me about that. Do you think ambition is something you're born with or something that's built? It could be both, to be sincerely honest with you, because I grew up knowing that nothing was going to be given to me and that I had to work hard for what I want. I was blessed with a family that told me, listen, nothing's given to you for free. You need to work hard for what you want. I'm going to teach you how to get it, and you take it from there. Okay? Ambition is like learning how to ride a bike. They can help you out, but you gotta ride that bike all the way down the road by yourself. That to me is what ambition is. When was a time your ambition worked against you instead of for you? Like I discussed in this episode, my ambition sometimes works against me where I'm trying to do too much with a little bit of time, and I don't consider my self-care by taking a rest. I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, sleep for like 2 hours, go to work, then come back and keep working, and then eventually burn myself out. If you had to lose one forever, pro wrestling or baseball, which one gotta go? I'm really upset about this question because that's a tough one. Simply because I grew up across the street from Yankee Stadium, and pro wrestling is how me and my Uncle Pete, Uncle Pedro, it's how we bonded. My uncle was the father figure that I had growing up, and that's how we bonded. So that's a really tough one, because sports is also something we bonded over. But pro wrestling is how I met a lot of my current friends. So that's a tough one. I really can't even think about, because those who know me know that pro wrestling and baseball are my absolute favorites. Oh man, that's a tough one. I can't, to be sincerely honest with you, I can't even choose. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that one. Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for stopping by and checking out another episode of That's So Random with your host, Doc One. Please like, share, subscribe. If you see this on YouTube, share the podcast with your friends. Let them know how amazing the show is. And I'll see you guys next week.
Watch me zoom.